Hello and welcome again to the Authority of Love. I'm your host, Greg Williams, joined by our great co-host, David Walls of the Family Foundation. We are a ministry of the Authority of Love and Lordship, where our vision is every life and relationship built on the love and Lordship of Jesus Christ. With that said, David, thanks for joining us again. Great to have you.
Yeah, good to be here, Greg.
Yeah. I got to say, I'm encouraged. I continue to get comments. You've said this before, but I continue to get comments. I got one yesterday, was out and about, and somebody said, really love what you and David are doing, the way you do it. And so I appreciate that, because not everybody does. I understand, it's okay, but we got to stand on what we know is truth.
We do,
and that's God's word.
Thankful to the Lord for the platform and opportunity to talk about some important issues with you every Friday.
Absolutely, love it. You always energize me, brother. So, and by the way, I've asked you the last 2 weeks because all the other schools started, but your kids finally went back to school this week after Labor Day, right?
They did. We're back in the throes of it. So school started. We got soccer practice and all the joys, and they are joys.
They are. Not always easy joys, but joys.
Yeah.
And that's good. You mentioned this week probably just went smooth as butter, right?
So far,
awesome.
Not a single hiccup.
That's great. That's the way it always goes. Everybody's loving that. We're being a little facetious, if you can't tell. If you're watching the video, you can tell that. But, as always, the culture and the liberals have given us plenty to talk about. And we were going to talk about this last week, David, but I know there's been a lot of universities and major corporations that have sort of, or at least said they're ditching DEI. Tell us what's going on with that.
Yeah, it's been in the news quite a bit. Again, DEI are these really discriminatory diversity, equity, and inclusion policies that we've unfortunately seen governments put in place, and a lot of universities in the school context, in the corporate context.
Yes.
But it has been encouraging to see, just because of the continued pushback and concern about how these policies actually lead to discrimination.
Yes.
And a lot of times are completely co-opted and tied with pushing the LGBT agenda on so many issues. Encouraging to see a little bit of a course correction, I would say. So, we talked last week, shared about how some major American corporations, John Deere, Tractor Supply, some others had announced that they were doing away with their corporate DEI policies. That's certainly encouraging. A long way to go on that front.
Right here in Central Kentucky.
Yeah, well,
the university has.
Yeah, some big news here a week or maybe 2 weeks ago now. The University of Kentucky announced it was kind of getting rid of, shuffling their DEI policy, and I mean, encouraged by that. But the caution I have is that what we've seen a lot of times, some of these government-related entities or universities with some of these is just kind of rename these programs or move some of the folks into different departments, and so I continue to believe, the legislature got right to the finish line but didn't pass a bill to essentially to ban DEI in public universities this last session, to protect tax dollars from funding these things. And I continue to believe that this is something that the legislature still needs to move forward and pass a law, even in spite of the announcement that the University of Kentucky made. One, we know other universities are still doing it, and two, my sense is, and there's been some conversation about this even in some of the media articles, is the university could be trying to do this preemptively to discourage the General Assembly from moving forward with the law.
Right, they don't say
so. But encouraged certainly by the developments, but I think this will continue to be a big topic in the next session.
Well, and I could say this along with what you're saying, David. When you look at the news, local and national, there are a lot that are doing it.
Yeah.
So there's got to, where there's smoke, there's fire. There's got to be, and part of this is bottom line.
Yeah.
Especially in the corporations. They're seeing that. So we can think, I have to echo one thing you said. 1 Peter 5:8 says, most of us know it as your enemy roams around like a roaring lion seeking whom may devour. But there's a little phrase in front of that speaks to us, be alert and self-controlled.
Yeah.
So I think we do need, you make a great point, there might be a political issue here to say, let's get the legislature off our back. We'll slide it back in some other ways. We got to be careful for that.
Yeah.
Also, we've been talking about, and we'll continue to talk about, Amendment 2. David, what's going on with that?
Yeah, just the campaign is ramping up, and
I think right?
both sides. I think seen a lot of news articles. I mentioned last week our op-ed that I wrote that Jesse Green on our team took the lead on has been published in a lot of outlets. Continue to see some arguments on the other side. And an undercurrent, Greg, of a lot of these, some of the arguments that we've seen, even an editorial that was in response or that was published at the same time as our editorial was in the Herald Leader, making a claim that this is probably the most outrageous new one I've heard, is that somehow school choice is a way to subsidize churches because they're losing money. What was essentially the argument that was made in an editorial, and I'll tell you what seems to be at the base of a lot of this is a hostility towards Christian education
in particular,
and that's really what's bubbling over here. But again, that's completely pretty outrageous argument. But we are continuing to educate folks on the importance of Amendment 2, the facts on Amendment 2. We've talked already, Greg, about our Facts on Amendment 2 resource. We just got a bunch, several thousand more of those printed. Happy if folks go to our website at kentuckyfamily.org and go to our Amendment 2 page and see all those resources. We're also
if they want hard copies,
printed,
they can come by the office, or so you'll send them to them.
Yeah. And then we're about to go to print, Lord willing, on our third quarter Kentucky Citizen. We'll be publishing that Amendment 2 resources in there, as well as a new editorial that Nick Spencer, our policy director, wrote about that. We'll have some other election resources in there as well. We're putting together a fact-based, issue-based presidential voter guide comparing former President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris, doing some further breaking down of the record of the candidates. And then there'll be other information in the Citizen as well. So now would be a great time. If you don't receive our free Kentucky Citizen publication, sign up for that on our website, and we'd be happy to send that to you. I pray that it'll be a great election resource for folks for the fall.
Yeah, and there's much more than just a presidential election. We'll get into that more as we get closer.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's Kentucky, spell it out, KentuckyFamilyAltogether.org, and you can find all that information. I will say one thing with regard to that, Dave. I read an article this week. I think I sent it to you and Adia, one of my other co-hosts that you know well. This is what happens when the government runs the schools, and then the judges make a decision. In New Hampshire, a judge actually decided for a school that was hiding the transgender transition from the parents and said they could do that.
Yeah.
Once again, it's taking control out of the parents' hands. Choice puts that back into the parents and the families, which is God's design.
Absolutely.
From Deuteronomy 6, right from the beginning.
And that's ultimately what Amendment 2 is about. And if it was passed, it would open the door for the General Assembly to say we want to create a system in Kentucky where resources are freed up, or some portion of resources are freed up to follow the families and the students and to empower parents. That's what this is all about.
And whoever does the best job gets the best results.
Yeah.
And that gives the opportunity for that. That's what we ought to be doing for our kids. Now, you mentioned the voter guide, the presidential campaigns. President Trump, and it's hard for us to do this because we think for the most part those policies and platforms are much more in line with what we think, but he's come out and made some concerning statements about reproductive rights. I got my air quotes going on here if you're not watching.
Yeah, and I know the election's heating up. And we see candidates that want to think that they're draw voters in, but it has been incredibly concerning to see some of the comments that President Trump has made. Made some comments about the Florida's heartbeat law, and he said this before, saying it's too strict. There should be more weeks. Again, what are we talking about here? When we're talking about weeks, we're talking about stages of development of a human being. And, I continue to be thankful that our law here in Kentucky is even past, we protect all human life, not, even prior to 6 weeks. There's a big ballot initiative on the ballot in Florida, like there are many other states, and President Trump kind of had a little bit of a back and forth about whether he was supporting the pro-abortion amendment or not.
He clearly stated that he wouldn't do that.
My hope is, and I've seen some national pro-life leaders, that they will continue to speak into him.
Yes.
He'll be receptive to hear. I can't think of a worse strategy for President Trump than to cause pro-lifers to question his support for the issue as we head to the election.
I think we look no further than our own state when Attorney General Daniel Cameron, who I have great respect for, tried to do the same thing by making some statements. And instead of drawing some more in, he lost more. And I think it probably cost him the election.
We need to be clear.
Yes.
And we need to speak truth, obviously, at all times. And I think, look, the reality is his opposition, Vice President Kamala Harris, Governor Walz, her running mate, they have made it clear. They want to see abortion legalized, nationalized. They want to see it taxpayer funded. She's
infants born alive.
There is still stark contrast on the issue.
Yes.
And so it provides an opportunity, I would say, to go on the offense and to point out instead of trying to capitulate a little bit and nuance. We need to be bold. We need to be clear. And
I would think you lose more than you gain if you're strong on it. You're going to gain a lot more. But I would say this: I do a Love and Lordship devotional every morning on our Love and Lordship Facebook page, and then share it to several others. But I would encourage you to go look at that on the Facebook page. I did. The Holy Spirit just guided me to do one on life and abortion today from some quotes and some scriptures. So I encourage you. And I even got a great rap song that was powerful, really powerful. Standing for Life. It's about two stories of two women, true stories. It's powerful. So I would encourage you to go look at that. Closing out with this, David, we got the Family Forum coming up here in about 5 weeks or so. George Barner's your keynote speaker.
We're excited to have Dr. Barna with us and all the other speakers. Dr. Barna is one of the leading researchers, writers on worldview and culture trends. He recently just put out a new study really shedding light on the state of evangelical Christianity. The headline was, unfortunately, that a lot of evangelicals are more likely to be shaped by culture than to influence it. I've been reading his latest book, which is about the importance of discipleship, particularly of children, and that the battle is around the hearts and minds of the next generation. And if we fail in discipling them, we're seeing what happens in the culture. So I'm really excited he's going to get to share about that at our forum. Again,
can I echo that when I'm speaking at the forum?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I have that in my book too, and I say that doesn't start in the church, although the church has picked that up because it starts in the home and the family.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of my quotes in the book, David, is this: we can never make up for in the church what we are throwing away in our families. God never designed it that way, so it'll never work. So we've got to get back to that. So I hate what it says, but I love that he's pointing it out.
Yeah, and he has some really good takeaways to I think to encourage folks. So if you haven't gotten your tickets, this today, Friday today is your last day. You can get a little bit of a discount on individual tickets. So encourage folks. It's Saturday, October 12th, the Kentucky Family Forum. Be a great day. Lunch that we'll be celebrating the 35th anniversary of our ministry. A lot of exciting things. I encourage folks to join us if you can.
Special award's going to be given too. We won't say any more than that right now. There's going to be one that I love,
some
and I know
special
you
guests.
do too. Yes. So, by the way, Kentucky Family, both of them all spelled out.org, and loveandlordship.com. You can find out more. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for your prayers. Thanks always to the Lord. Make it a great day in the love and lordship of Christ. Stay tuned at 12:45 for my good friend Greg Horn and Hope is here. I'm Greg Williams with co-host David Walls.